How have farmers throughout Taiwan's history adapted to sudden typhoons or extreme weather scenarios?
We have to understand that farming and agriculture, in its very essence, is about adapting. So the thing about challenging environmental challenges or weather challenges or weather variability or climate variability and adapting to that is very much in essence of agriculture, in essence of farming. So we should be a bit careful in saying that in the past farmers were very much able to adapt, and nowadays farmers see these environmental challenges as something that makes farming untenable in that sense. With that being said, when we look at the past, certain typhoon seasons or certain climatic seasons were kind of more predictable. So when farmers would be having the harvest season or when they would grow certain crops, they were perhaps more in sync with the way how weather was changing, how the climate was changing, and they could anticipate based on that using their local and traditional ecological knowledge systems.
Looking forward to the future, which trends or practices might farmers adapt to as climate change becomes a larger problem and there are additional sudden typhoons or years where there are no typhoons?
So we have to be very critical to say, well, what's the impact of climate change and what is it actually that farmers adapt to? With that being said, the research that we have done clearly shows that farmers experience changing weather conditions. The rainy season usually is, at least what I have learned from my research, is that it's often shorter in time but more intense. Typhoons, they become more unpredictable. And while climate change might not necessarily cause more typhoons to happen, typhoons are expected to become more intense. So, in that sense, we need to figure out as a society, as a government, is how can we minimize the negative impacts of climate change that we can prevent? And in many ways, I would say that you should cooperate more with farmers because they are definitely able to understand what's going on in terms of changing climatic conditions.
So, with cooperating with farmers in mind, what then are some policies or practices that we can implement right now to add additional agricultural resiliency?
Listen more to farmers. Yeah, so see what issues that they are facing. A lot of places we visited, you could see farmers had like land tenure issues. Um, what we also see a lot of indigenous people do more and more is planting more indigenous crops, indigenous varieties of rice and millet. And we should try to encourage that in a sense that it's not only cultural heritage of farmers that we talk about, but a lot of indigenous practices, indigenous crops are also better suited to changing climatic conditions. There's not that I would say that indigenous knowledge will solve climate change, but I think we need to pay more attention to that.